Alright, today we're going to learn how to program a robotic arm on our robot. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that we open up Robot C for the pick. So we want to go into here. Don't do the Robot C 4.x that might be on your desktop. You have to go into Robot C for Vex pick. And it has to be the one, if it pops up, it should say for Vex pick right there. We can go in and open up a sample program. And this is where we can open up our radio control transmitter, and we did dual joystick control the other day, so we're going to open up that file again. And if you scroll down, it talks to us about channel 5 and channel 6, which these are the rear buttons on the back of your joystick. And you can see when the top button is pressed, it gives a value of 127 to channel 5 and a value of negative 127 when the bottom button is pressed for channel 5. And this is on the left rear of the joystick. I'm going to be using channel 6, which are the right rear buttons, and we're going to program the top button to make the arm go up and the down button to make the arm go down. We're going to, if you remember, we changed the right motor and left motor to ports 1 and 8, or 1 and 8, I believe. I'm not going to update those in this. I'm just going to add a statement in here for our arm. So last week we talked about how while 1 equal 1, this is always true, so it's just going to jump into this while loop. And then when it gets to the bottom, it goes back to the top, it rechecks, it's true again, so it goes back in and keeps doing this. And it keeps updating your motor port values based on the channel 2 and channel 3 on the transmitter. And that's great. We are now going to have it update motor values on our arm motor based on when this top button is pressed or the bottom button is pressed. So with that, we use what's called an if statement. So I'm going to go over here to C constructs and go to if statements, and I'm going to drag in this if else right here so you can see what this looks like. This is a general if else statement. And if the condition is true, then it runs the body. So this is if the condition is true, this part runs. And if the condition is false, then the else runs. Okay, so we want to put a condition in here that if Vex RT channel 6 is 127. This should be equal because we're comparing it to 127. So if channel 6, if we press the top button on channel 6, it's going to send a value of 127 into this space. So is 127 equivalent to 127? Well, that is true. So what do we want to happen if that button is pressed? We want to set the motor for port, we'll call it port 3, and we're going to set that to a speed of like 35, something small. So this would be port 1, port 8, I believe, and we're putting our arm in port 3. So we can put a note of that. Arm motor is in port 3. And you can say motor port. So that will get the arm motor to be going up. Now this is positive because it's going to be going up, and we use down as negative. So I'm going to copy and paste this, because if this is not true, I want to check channel 6 again to see if the bottom button is pressed. And if the bottom button is pressed, then I want the motor port to do what? Good, I want it to go negative 35, so I want it to be going the opposite direction at that speed. And then I can do an else, And now what do I want to happen if no buttons are pressed? Good, I want the motor to stop. So I'm going to set this equal to 0. So hopefully that makes sense. So this if statement basically checks to see if the top button is pressed. If it's not, it checks to see if the bottom button is pressed. And if it's not, then it turns the motors off. And these should be single equals here. So I messed that up because these are assignments. So we are setting the motor port equal to that value. So just like we did up here, this is a checking to see if they're equivalent. This is an assignment to set it equal to this number. And hopefully that makes sense. So if we look at the program flow, you can see that we go into our task main. I don't know, this doesn't have to be flipped for right now, but this autonomous mode has to be false. And we go in this while loop. Now we're going to stay in this while loop forever. The first thing that it does is it sets port 1 and port 8 equal to those channels. So if we're not pushing up on the joysticks, those values are 0, so the robot's not moving. And then it checks channel 6 to see if the top button is pressed. If it is, then it starts moving the arm up. It checks to then see if the bottom button is pressed. If this is false, it moves into here. If this is false, it moves into here and does this. So it will only do one of these three things every time it goes through. So it either moves the arm up, it moves the arm down, or it holds the arm in position. And then it goes back to the top, and it's doing this 20 to 50 times per second running through these. So it's updating those motor values very quickly as it runs through this. Give this a try, download it to your robot, see what you get, and again, you can pause this, copy it exactly, and it should work for you. Have a good day.